Welcome to Let's Learn 2024 D&D, where I go over a different rule of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in 2024. This is for people looking for a quick rule refresher or looking to get into the game. My name's Jimmy, your local dungeon master. Let's begin. Today, we're talking about types of actions and action economy. Let's learn. This will likely be our longest video to date, so prepare yourself as I try to get through all the different types of actions, as well as dive a little bit into action economy and what I mean by that. So let's begin. So let's set the scene. Some goblins ambush your player characters along the road. You had heard them moving through the trees, so you all aren't very surprised. The dungeon master asks the players to roll initiative, and you get an 18. And as it turns out, you are first in the initiative. So your turn begins, and you look down at your character sheet, and it all blurs together a little bit. It is alright. You have plenty of stuff you can do when your turn comes up in initiative. First thing is first, you get something called an action. Actions are wonderful. They are the primary thing you want to do on your turn. The book gives you several types of actions to choose from. These are attack, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, influence, magic, ready, search, study, and utilize. Let's break them down real quick. The action is when you use a weapon or make an unarmed strike at a creature or object. To expand on unarmed strike, in 2024 5e D&D, there are 3 types of unarmed strikes: damage, grapple, and shove. What you must do for the unarmed strike depends on which option you choose. So let's explain each. Damage is when you try to use your body in any way to injure the creature. You make an attack roll using a d20 plus your proficiency bonus plus your strength modifier and determine if you hit the target's armor class. If you do, the damage is 1 plus your strength modifier. A grapple is when you try to give a creature the grappled condition. You must have a free hand in order to start a grapple check. When you make a grapple check, a creature makes a strength or dexterity saving throw against a DC equal to 8 plus your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus. If the creature fails, they are grappled by you and gain the grappled condition. Do note, you can only try to grapple a creature one size category bigger than you. We'll talk about size later. To end a grappled condition, a creature can attempt to do so by making an athletics or acrobatics skill check contested against your escape DC, which is your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus plus 8. Shove is the identical save to a grapple check, except you don't need to have a free hand to do so. And instead of grappling the creature, you push them 5 feet in a direction or give them the prone condition. So a cheeky combo is if you grapple a creature and someone else shoves them prone, the creature cannot stand up until they break free of the grappled condition. So that is all of the attack action. Let's move to the other actions. The dash action lets you use your movement speed again. So if you have 30 feet of movement, your action would let you use 30 more feet of movement, effectively 60 feet of movement in this case. The disengage action lets you safely back away from combat without taking an attack of opportunity. We'll talk about these in a bit. The dodge action gives you advantage on your dexterity saving throws, and creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against you until the start of your next turn as you focus on avoiding attacks. The help action is used to give another creature advantage on an ability check or to administer first aid with the medicine skill. As we previously talked about, this is when you would use a medicine kit if you're trying to bring someone back up from dying. The hide action lets you use your stealth skill to attempt to hide from creatures. The influence action is if you spend your action trying to change the opponent's mind in some way with your social skills, like trying to talk those previous guards into letting you and your friends into the city. The magic action is if you attempt to cast a spell, use a magic item, or some magical feature. The ready action is a special action where you delay your action and use your reaction at a later time if you meet certain criteria that you lay out. An example of this action is you readying to fire your bow at the nearest goblin. If your party's bard doesn't convince the goblins you are attempting to pass safely, and the goblin shows themselves as hostile, you would use your reaction and fire an arrow. The study action is when you utilize your action to use your brain to try to understand something. The last action, the utilize action, is when you use some form of object as your action, such as adventuring Gary Wentover.
Hey, this is Jimmy in Post. Just want to mention I forgot one of the actions when I was doing this originally, and that is the search action, and it's when you use your perception and your character's innate senses to perceive the area and see if they notice anything out of the ordinary. This could include stuff like an insight checks to tell if someone might be influencing some form of lie, or a medicine check to determine a creature's ailment or cause of death, as well as like perception to notice something, or even survival to find some tracks. So I just want to toss this in here. All of these actions we mentioned would take up the one action you get on your turn, but that is not the only thing you can do with your turn. Additionally, you have special action called a bonus action. You don't have to do your action before your bonus action. You can take any portion of your actions in any order. Though you have a bonus action, you may not end up using it on your turn always. Some characters use bonus actions aplenty,
and some don't need to use them as much. Another thing your character can do on their turn is move. On your turn, your character can move up to their movement speed in feet. One last feature you get that refreshes on your turn is a reaction. A reaction is something that requires another creature doing something for you to respond with a reaction. An example is an attack of opportunity. If the goblin you end up drawing your sword on and running into fight decides to turn tail and run, if they don't take the disengage action, then you can use your attack of opportunity reaction to make a melee swing at their back. It is basically a free swing at them. When we get to the action economy section of this video, I'll go over this more. I also plan to go over grid combat in an upcoming video. Just know this game also uses your imagination, so sometimes the movement and distances can be tracked by the Dungeon Master, and sometimes there are visuals you can see at the table, none of which is required actually. So let's regroup and dive in a little into all of this and then blend it into some action economy. On our turn in combat with the goblins, we have an action, a bonus action, movement, and a reaction. We'll use our action on our turn unless we suffer a condition that prevents it, like something like incapacitated. We may use our bonus action if we have one that we can use. We have movement that we may choose to use or not to use, and our reaction, which is situational. One last thing I want to include is something called an object interaction. Normally something like drawing or stowing a weapon is an object interaction, and it's never really an issue until combat, in which you get one object interaction on your turn. This can be used to draw a weapon or stow a weapon, open a door, or other minor things. I'll provide some examples. It is likely if you want to change weapons in combat, you would have to drop your weapon in order to draw another one, because dropping something doesn't count as an object interaction. You can always just drop something. An important thing to note is all the features, abilities, and spells your character get will specify if they are an action, bonus action, or a reaction as well. So that's what we can do on our turn in combat. Now, how does a lot of this break down when we visualize it? Shermlog, the goblin, hoists up his short sword and shows the party they are ready to fight. You are a fighter and have a long sword at your side, and the goblin is 20 feet away from you. What do you do? This is a choice that you have to do whatever you want. Let's say you choose to draw your sword with your object interaction and swing with your action. Well, the goblin is 20 feet away, so you can move the 20 feet forward, swing at the goblin with your d20 attack roll, and that would be using some of your movement, your action, and your object interaction. You would still have a bonus action and a reaction, and 10 feet of movement. You don't have to use those on your turn, but of course, it is your choice. You could choose to then back up 10 feet, but the goblin would get the chance to make an attack of opportunity, because you didn't take the disengage action. For that, I wouldn't recommend swinging and then running away right after, unless you have the ability to disengage some way. Another way that turn could have played out is if you use the ready action stating you would swing at the goblin only if he charged at you to swing his short sword, and then let your turn pass. So on the goblin's turn, if the goblin chose to run and attack you, you would then use your reaction to make the attack. There are some technical ways to use a ready action, and it can get complicated, so let's not dive too deep into the rabbit hole of that. Let's pretend we were a wizard instead of a fighter. The same situation. A wizard has different levels of spell slots and several minor spells called cantrips. Let's pretend our wizard has the Firebolt cantrip, and they want to cast that at a goblin. We would take the magic action and cast our cantrip at the goblin, making a spell attack roll. If our attack hits, we then roll damage. Our wizard has some stronger things, first level spells, but maybe doesn't want to use them just yet. They choose to use a cantrip over a first level spell slot. An important note to consider is if we cast a spell slot of first level or higher with our action, we cannot use our bonus action to cast a first level spell or higher. We are only allowed to cast one first level spell or higher on our turn, though we could cast a cantrip in a spell first level or higher. So if we cast a cantrip with our action and use our bonus action to cast some form of bonus action timed spell, we could do that. So when it comes to looking at all these mechanical options you have on your turn, it's important to know what type of action the ability or spell you're wanting to do will take. Some spells are made in response as a reaction, like the shield spell or absorb elements, while others like fireball or firebolt are actions. But other spells like Fairy Fire or Misty Step are bonus action spells. So when you get to your turn in combat, it's important to be paying attention so you have an idea of what you want to do. I think a good way to break this down for yourself is to treat each action, bonus action, interaction, or reaction like a resource that you could spend that you get back at the start of each of your turns. If you don't spend them, you lose them, so try to use them if you can. So a lot of this sounds like it could be a lot, but also these actions are only prominent to track when you're in initiative, because it's simply everyone spending 6 seconds doing some stuff. So when you're out of combat, these actions and bonus actions matter a lot less. So if we remember back when I talked about weapons and we talked about the different features each weapon has, one thing I tried to save for the action economy talk was how close you need to be to hit with a weapon or a spell. So we mentioned bows and thrown weapons have ranges, and from that distance you can make attack rolls. The implication for melee weapons is that you need to be next to your foe. In other words, within 5 feet of them. Spells specify what their range is and what you need to do to hit with them, so we'll go over that when we talk about the different types of spells and their ranges and radii. So it makes sense that you would need to be next to a creature you want to hit with a melee weapon. And that's why when a weapon has the reach feature, the distance you can hit them from increases to further away, such as from 5 feet to 10 feet. This probably sounds a little obvious, but I think it's important to clarify given we talked about combat. So we have talked a lot about the general information in combat, and I just want to include some important statements regarding combat that don't fit specifically in this video, but are important to know. So your movement doesn't just mean walking speed. This can include climbing speed or swimming speed. Your movement could be in any way in which you move your body. Difficult terrain is when you try to move through something hard to walk or move in, such as thick mud, deeper water, or some magical effect. This movement costs twice your normal movement speed. An important note is movement impeding effects stack, so if you're prone and crawling and in mud, your speed would be halved twice. There are 6 creature sizes: tiny, small, medium, large, huge, and gargantuan. We'll talk about these more in an upcoming video. If your character stands behind something or tries to hide, they gain a state called half cover, 3/4 covered, or full cover. There's a chart that shows you what you get for each of them. It's roughly broken down to what percentage of your body is concealed from the creature trying to attack you. Ranged attacks in melee combat. So if you try to make a ranged attack in melee combat with an enemy, you have disadvantage on the attack roll. This is because they are likely impeding your shot or throw somehow. Similarly, if you try to hit a target prone with a ranged attack, you also have disadvantage on that attack roll. A good note about attacks of opportunity is they only really trigger when you try to walk away without taking the disengage action. If the creature teleports or is pushed away, then you can't make an attack of opportunity against it. If this all sounds like a lot of random information, you would be correct. Action Economy has a lot of aspects to it, despite this being a simpler TTRPG. Just know that many of these aspects will come more easily to you as you learn and try the game. Just remember there are other players and a Dungeon Master at the table who will help you along the way. And if you're all figuring it out together, it's okay to look up the rule and figure out on the way. And with that, thank you all for listening to this Let's Learn. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. If there's another topic you want to cover for the 2024 rules of Dungeons & Dragons or have a question about the topic just covered, leave a comment. The point of these are to be educational and informative and to help introduce the game to people who may not have played before or want to get back into it. Thank you.